Welcome to the Investor Coaching Show, a podcast to help you get an insider's view of the financial world and escape common investment traps. We look at the financial news of the day and help you make sense of it so you can relax about money. And here's your host, Paul Winkler.
All right, back here on the Investor Coaching Show, Paul Winkler, talking money and investing. Okay, so talking to my nephew. It's my wife's sister's son. I guess that's, it's nephew, right? Somehow. I am terrible with these family relationships. What do you call people? Nephew, second removed, whatever. I don't have a clue. But anyway, we got this great conversation.
Removed.
I don't know. I'm kidding. I'm joking.
I'm
just joking because I have no clue. You know, they have these terms, twice removed and, all that stuff. And I was like, I have no idea what any of that means.
Maybe they were adopted.
No. No, he wasn't adopted.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, he is really, and I had no idea that David was watching so much, a lot of these videos on YouTube, and he gets into these areas that are fascinating. And we got into just a great conversation. And we're talking about some of the stuff I talk about here on the show, but he got into talking about this guy, and it reminded me, I was like, I know that name. Well, Edward Bernays. And I was like, I know that name. And I took a PR class, public relations class, when I was in college. So you go back, oh gosh, we're going back 40 years. And I am in college, and I needed another course. I was working full time. I was probably working 40 to 50 hours a week.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, taking 12 credit hours.
Woo!
Mm-hmm. And playing in a band. Yeah. I do not know how I did it. Do not.
I should scream for you back in the back.
I know.
In that band. Woo! I wasn't even born.
I do not know how I guess I always had a lot of energy. So anyway, I took this class and I had to have one more credit in order to graduate. So I had to change colleges. Not change, I didn't transfer. I just took a class and they let me put it and let me count it in my curriculum for University of Albany economics.
Woo!
So did that. And anyway,
that's going to be my thing. Woo!
So Edward Bernays was talked about. Nick's just laughing at Leviticus going, what on earth? So anyway, woo! Edward Bernays, got to check this out.
That was hard.
Hang on.
While no single man can take full credit for the rise of American advertising, Edward Bernays certainly deserves more than most. Known today as the father of public relations, Bernays was responsible for campaigns that changed the lives and minds of the American citizen forever, having a hand in everything from political leaders to smoking culture and what Americans ate for their breakfast.
So this is a guy that actually, he brags that this guy from Nazi Germany, Propagandist from Nazi Germany, had actually studied his stuff. I mean, that's how far this guy goes back, and used a lot of it in the war effort. So that's what they're talking about right there. But just check out this guy's history. It's interesting.
He was a self-proclaimed master of propaganda. His methods blurred the lines between effective advertising and outright brainwashing. Seeing how effective propaganda could be during wartime, Bernays began to realize the same methods could be used in peace. Psychological warfare, he believed, could be waged on the American population to much benefit to the individual and the organization.
Now, before I go further, one of the things that I find in the investing industry is this group think type of a thing that tends to happen. Where people just jump on the bandwagon on the same exact thing. Watch the financial channels, and you'll find a lot of them are talking about the same exact investments, same areas of the market. It's herding bias is what it's called. And in the financial world, when it comes to, like, for example, types of products that are sold, I remember when I worked for a big investment company, we were told this is what you need to be selling. It was indexed annuities. That's when they first came out. literally. And that's still being pushed a lot right now. But variable annuities were a big deal back then. They're not as big of a deal right now. They're not nearly as pushed as the index annuities, but that was a big thing that was pushed. Variable life insurance was a big selling product. Whole life insurance as an investment. Now that's starting to make a comeback, which just makes no sense to me whatsoever. One of the things that was oil and gas limited partnerships were another thing that were really, really hot. Limited partnerships in general in the 1980s were a big deal. So this whole idea is, how do we get people to buy something that is not good for them? That's really where this is going. But check this out. This is, how do you get people to buy something that is not healthy for you when it comes to a food item? How do you get somebody to buy something that's not good for them as an investment? Well, just listen up. Here's how you do it. Check it out.
And so began his career as a public relations consultant. Bernays incorporated his Uncle Sigmund's psychoanalytic theory.
So Sigmund Freud was his uncle, just to give you an idea. Yeah, the acorn isn't falling far from the tree when it comes to where this guy is learning how to use and manipulate people's thoughts, their thinking, their behavior against them to get them to buy things and do things that they shouldn't be doing.
To help define his early techniques, he recognized that people were motivated by other desires, that the population had a herd mentality.
There you go. There's the herd mentality. What are other people doing? There's safety in numbers. Everybody at work is investing in this thing. And somebody was telling me recently, they were talking about the state. They were talking about the government and the TSP, the Thrift Savings Plan, how everybody at the beginning of the year had been loading up on the C Fund, which is large U.S. stock fund. And, you know, when it gets down to it, it did not do nearly as well as what people thought it was going to do versus other areas in the market. Now, a lot of the areas in the market aren't even represented with the Thrift Savings Plan, but the international has been better. But people were loading up on something else because they thought it was going to do well, and it was herd mentality. Everybody's doing it. That's the same thing that we find when it comes to investing in general. People really got into technology stocks in the late 90s. It was herd mentality. You can't lose until that area of the market went down 80%.
And that their opinion was something that could easily be manipulated. In the 1920s, Bernays was hired by the Beechnut Packing Company.
Yeah, check this out. He's hired by the Beechnut Packing Company because they want to sell something, but it's not necessarily the best thing for you. So how do we get people to do something that is not necessarily good for them? Yeah, here's your formula.
To help them improve their sales in bacon. The problem, Bernays quickly realized, wasn't in the product or price, but in the American mindset. At the time, a light breakfast was considered the healthiest way to start the day.
Does that seem reasonable? Maybe a light breakfast is a good way to start the day. Maybe something, eating a little bit more healthy stuff. Maybe things that are a little bit nutrition packed, a little bit, maybe not so fatty and bad for you as something like bacon.
Bernays sought to overcome this by approaching around 5,000 physicians and having them sign a statement that a hearty breakfast of bacon and eggs was far healthier.
How do you get professionals in an industry to do that? Man, you think about it, the commercials. Those of you that are a little bit older, 40s and 50s, physicians smoking cigarettes because it's good for you. This is what you ought to do. This is really healthy. And you just go, how do you get people to do that? I'm going to tell you, in the financial industry, I see the same doggone thing. It was when I was working for the big investment firm, several different investment firms. You know what they taught us to do? They said, here, you need to buy this for yourself. Invest in it for yourself. You can't sell it if you don't own it. I'm like, I don't want to own it. So that's why I stunk at sales. I couldn't get myself to buy this junk. I couldn't get myself to buy an annuity. There was just no way on earth I was going to buy that. I did, against my better judgment, buy myself a whole life policy. Big mistake. But, that was the idea. You can't sell it if you don't own it yourself.
He had this published nationally, and when the American population read the report, the sales of bacon shot up, and what is today considered the all-American breakfast was born.
That's it. That's all it takes. And I find that if you look out on the internet, you will find there are professors out there, people out there that are teaching finance that are all for some of these products that I talk about on here on the show that I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. And you go, how did they get them to do it? I'll let you figure that out. How did they get these doctors to sign on that this breakfast was a good breakfast? This was something you ought to be doing. Or get them to smoke cigarettes and tell people that it was a great thing to do. You've got to watch the industries that you deal with. Where's the information coming from? A lot of this stuff doesn't make sense. But, I strongly believe you can understand this stuff. You've heard me say that before. Investing is very logical, but you got to watch it when you are suspending your responsibility to understand, what am I doing, why am I doing it, and what to expect. The three things that I talk about all the time here on the show. But there's nothing new under the sun, to quote Solomon. And there's a good example right there. I got to thank David for reminding me of this guy. Hey, just a note to you podcast folks, we just came out with a retirement income guide, and I'm super excited about this. There are all kinds of myths about taking income in retirement. People worry about running out of money, and rightfully so, because a lot of these myths can actually cause that. Now, the myths that you typically hear about, number one, like dividends, living off dividends in retirement, real estate, life insurance as a retirement investment, and annuities, and interest-bearing accounts, and target date funds, there are all kinds of things out there. What I want to do is put something together that walks through why those things are problematic, number one. Number two, the other thing that I wanted to do is walk through the evidence-based research on taking income in retirement. And we got a ton of data going all the way back to 1900. What's the logic behind it? And it's intensely logical. So we put that together, and all you have to do to download that, making it super simple, just go to paulwinkler.com/relax, and you can actually get into that very easily right there. So I would urge you to do that. Check it out, because I think you're going to really like it. paulwinkler.com/relax. All right, I'm back here. I was looking for something. I had to find something before I started talking about this. Gosh. Okay, there we go. I was Paul Winkler, Investor Coaching Show. PaulWinkler.com is the website. Since Trump's return,
you forgot your show.
No. Since Trump's return, bets on his brand have soured, and I was like, what are they talking about here? It's Wall Street Journal. This is something that I said at the very, very beginning, and this is, when it comes to, Donald Trump and politics and all those types of things, I stay as far as east as from west on that, any of that stuff. But when it comes to investing type of stuff, I will talk about it. And the stocks and cryptocurrencies linked to President Trump, they said in the Wall Street Journal, are in a deep slump, leaving some of his biggest fans with steep losses. But these are the things I told people: do not get yourself all fired up about this type of stuff. The Truth Social platform, it's tumbled 75% since its inauguration. Digital meme coins, named for Trump and Lady Melania Trump, down 86%, 99%. I mean, shoot, I've been talking about, cryptos in general. And, who knows what the heck's going to happen? You get these, they're all over the place. Incredibly volatile. And the losses that people have taken on a lot of these things that they've invested in, thinking, hey, this president's going to be behind this stuff. It doesn't really matter. You cannot predict the future. I get really frustrated when I hear any politician say, well, since I've been in office, the stock market's done this. And I'm like going, you know what? When your opponent was in office, the stock market did that too. It wasn't your opponent was great either. Don't look at the stock market and assume it's your policies that are driving it up or down. Stock markets go up more often during recessions than they go down. It's the opposite of what most people think. They think somehow, hey, because I was in office and I did all these great things, the stock market went up. No, the stock market has gone up under Democrats, under Republicans, Republican Congress, Democrat Congress, Republican presidents, Democrat presidents. It goes up and down, back and forth. That's just what the stock market does. You're basically looking at companies and they're figuring out whatever they've got to do to be successful. That's just the way it works. Don't pat yourself on the back too hard. Another thing, there was an article that my wife shared with me is losing trust in the Social Security Fund. Talk about 3/4 of American workers fear that promised Social Security benefits won't be there when they retire. 76% of workers, 80% of retirees concerned that the benefits won't be paid. Reason for the concern, projection Social Security faces a shortfall by 2034. At that point, the federal program's cash reserve will be depleted. And they're basically saying, the Trump administration may be stoking fears. And people have a real misunderstanding. If you want to watch an entire workshop on this, go to my website, paulwinkler.com, check out the workshop. But I start the workshop on this very topic. Is it going to be there for you? And one of the things I talk about is the trust fund and how large the trust fund is. And yes, it's decreasing. Yes, it is expected to run out. But what does that basically mean? That means that the extra money that was set aside when there were more workers will be depleted. You had more workers paying into the trust fund than people that were receiving the benefits. So the trust fund built up. They actually had a lot of extra money that was coming in, for the future. But basically that's going to run out. But because you have people that are still working, and I talk about this a lot in the workshop, because people will still be working 10 years from now, you will still have money coming into the trust fund to pay for people that are in retirement, number one. Number two, there are all kinds of proposals on how you could adjust the system to increase the revenue to actually pay for people that are in retirement. Number three, you could also change the COLA, the cost of living allowance. And I talk a lot about how the COLA adjustment is done. And you can take a look at generations and how you could look at the Social Security age for some people. We could change the age for younger people. You could change how the benefits are actually paid. You could actually, used to be that age 65 was the Social Security retirement age. And now it's 67. Could you move it up? Yeah, there's a possibility. I don't know that will be the solution, but you could change the tax rate. 6.2, you can move that up. And you have the employer matching, another 6.2. There's possibilities of actually, the COLA, where it is based on labor inflation rates, you could change it to regular CPI rates. You could look at the maximum earnings subject to Social Security tax. In 2025, that is $176,000. After you get to that level of income, you don't pay Social Security taxes. I'm not a big fan of this, but you could do that. You could actually increase that sum. They've talked about a donut hole, and I'm like, that's a horrible, horrible idea. But, there are possibilities. There are all kinds of things out there that could actually keep the system very solvent. So I don't necessarily worry about that it's going to run down or run out, because seniors tend to like to vote. They tend to show up at the polls. And the reality of it is, because they show up at the polls, politicians don't want to irritate them. They'll probably wait till the last minute. They did that. You had a 50% tax on Social Security that was instituted in the 1980s, and it was increased to 85% in the 1990s under Clinton. But a lot of people forget that it was Reagan that actually instituted the first income tax on Social Security. It was. Hey, this is Paul Winkler. Hope you enjoyed today's edition of the Investor Coaching Show. If you want to learn more about what we do, go to our website, paulwinkler.com. Until next time, I'm Paul Winkler, reminding you that I believe that more educated investors are more confident investors, and confident investors are more successful investors. Have a great one. Advisory services offered through Paul Winkler, Inc., an SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced and information provided in this material are for general informational purposes only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine what investments are appropriate for you, please consult with a financial advisor. Paul Winkler Inc. does not provide tax or legal advice. Please consult your tax or legal advisor regarding your particular situation.